Excerpt here from Mussorgsky's Pictures in an Exhibition, orchestrated by Ravel, one of the pieces on tonight's concert program for the Ottawa Symphony Orchestra. For my next guest, it will be his swan song as a member of the OSO. Violinist Stelth Ng is about to graduate with a Master's in Violin Performance from the University of Ottawa. And this is an accomplishment I think his teenage self would have been rather surprised by. As a kid, Ng studied piano, some violin, though his life's ambition was a career in science. That all changed for Ng. Before and during high school, he underwent many eye surgeries, some of which would leave him temporarily blind. For more in his story, Stelth Ng joins me in studio. Hello there.
Hi.
So I just said swan song, your final night with the OSO. How does it feel hearing that?
Well, it's actually quite fitting and also very exciting because it just so happens that the conductor who's going to be conducting tonight is the guest Maestro Alan Neal, who is just absolutely phenomenal conductor to work with. And I actually performed with Maestro Trudel with the National Youth Orchestra a few years ago at the National Arts Center. That was my first performance here. But I'm very excited for tonight's performance. Mussorgsky is one of my very all-time favorite pieces. It's there's just so many visual images that come to mind when you play the piece, and so thrilling.
What comes to mind when you play the piece?
Well, I believe the piece is actually inspired by an artist, Victor Hartmann, around 1870 something. Mm-hmm. And when his friend, Mussorgsky's friend Hartmann, died, there was an exhibition that was held in honor of his artistic contributions. And when Mussorgsky saw these pictures, he was inspired to composed this piece. And if you read into it, there's many different visual images from gnomes and a ballet of unhatched chicks and Baba Yaga, Slavic folklore, witches, and just very entertaining, very imaginative, fantastic visuals.
It's interesting to hear you talk about visual images being when you play the music. As I mentioned, some of which the eye surgeries that you underwent left you temporarily blind. Music was a side project for you at that point. How did the violin become part of your recovery?
So when I was actually, it all started when I was 12. Before I was even a teenager, and I had, for some reason, premature cataracts. And while those surgeries were successful, for some reason there were a whole other set of complications that came with it. And by the time I was 18, I was well over 16 surgeries for both my eyes, and there was this period when I had subsequent surgeries for both eyes and I couldn't see. And I realized at that time, I was stressing out about marks and getting into university, and I had always wanted to pursue sciences and health studies, but then I realized that with my vision I wouldn't be able to see microscopes, labs and PowerPoint presentations, let alone the readings. So in the recovery time, the only thing that I could really do was turn to my violin, because I couldn't see at all. I couldn't even get dressed or eat because I couldn't see. And what I found was amazing was that it made me almost forget how important my eyes were. And you were referring to the visual part. What was interesting for me, and so anything it was very inspiring, was that I had learned for a huge part of my life how to learn and play music by sheet music, by reading and using my sight. And then all of a sudden I lost my vision, and so I relied on recordings and learning a few pieces by ear. And when I did that, all these things that I hadn't paid attention to suddenly came to light. And I started hearing more accurately. I started seeing things mentally, these visual images that I hadn't given a lot of attention to before, because I was so focused on these black dots on the music.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as musicians, our job is to make sound out of those black dots, which is why it's so interesting, because for Mussorgsky, he sees these visual images and he translates it into sound, right? And for me, when I couldn't see, I started seeing more when I was playing music, and it was a huge emotional relief,
Even just technically approaching the violin, though, when you were in the midst of recovery, like for some people that would have been daunting in itself, right? Because regardless of how much you can visualize the music that's created and the images that come forth from there, some people's first connection to an instrument is seeing the string, or knowing where the bow is going to connect, right?
Well, I guess I'm fortunate in the sense that I learned the basics of playing the instrument as a child when I could see. I didn't start losing my vision until my teens. But after that, I realized that I didn't need to look at my fingers. So it's when you look at a violin, it doesn't have frets like a guitar.
Sure.
It doesn't have, the spacing or giant leaps on the piano when you need to play more virtuosic stuff. So I realized that I could feel my way around and just depend on my ears, and my hands would know where to go. And from that, I could focus on practicing my repertoire, which I probably should be doing more today.
We won't keep you much longer, I promise. You are completely blind in your right eye.
Yes,
You've got limited vision in your left eye. In the orchestra setting, how do you navigate around things like following the conductor?
So it's the Ottawa Symphony, the managers and the conductors have been very understanding of me. So I sit very close to the conductor. And I sit on the outside. In a normal orchestra setting, there are two stands. You say the first desk, there are two violins that sit next to each other. And I sit on the right side so that my left eye can see my stand partner on the left and the music. And then I look up as much as I can to look at the conductor and back up my music. But it's difficult because I don't have a lens inside my eye. They removed it as part of the surgeries that they did. And so my eyes sometimes focus in and out and lose focus, especially after I read too much or use my vision too much. So, sitting close to the conductor definitely helps.
Has that led to complications at all in the midst of a performance?
Well, I try to prepare as much as I can. I can still see music. It's difficult. And I'm lucky that I can blow music up in advance of rehearsals and read it and try to memorize as much as I can before we go into rehearsals and prepare for the concert.
Now, I mentioned the master's degree. At U of O, you're a student of Yosuke Kawasaki, the NAC Orchestra's concert master. You're about to graduate with the master's next month. If all goes according to plan. What's next?
Well, based on my own experience, I really hope to start a concert series for the blind in Toronto. And I realized that it was a very difficult time because I lost my vision when I was 18, and I realized afterwards how heavily I depended on music to really recuperate, not only physically but mentally and emotionally. And I realized during the many hours of when I was visiting ophthalmologists' offices that there were many children out there who can't see. And while I can't cure them of their ocular conditions, I could potentially create this series that could bring music into their lives and give them a lot of hope. And I know that looking back, if something like this existed when I was going through these struggles, it would have made a huge difference for me.
How would a concert series for the blind be directed towards them?
Well, there are certain clinics that, like for say the Hospital of Sick Children's Hospital of Sick Kids, in Toronto, there are ophthalmologists who deal especially with children, and they have a group of patients who come in regularly. And the way I would foresee this is to have a sort of chamber music series. So you have either string quartets or duos come in and play for them, or even try and gather them at a certain venue. But I would be a sort of musicians go to the patient sort of thing.
Fantastic idea.
I
hope this happens for you. Stelth, congratulations on everything you've done, and best of luck with what happens next.
Thank you so much.
Stelth Ng, master's student in violin performance at the University of Ottawa. Tonight, you can catch him at the NAC. The Ottawa Symphony Orchestra presents its concert Symphonic Pictures in Southam Hall at 8. We've posted a link with more information on our website, cbc.ca/allinaday.